Good afternoon, scholars. Dr. Cobb here. Hope everyone's having a great day. I just want to take this opportunity to talk to you a bit about leadership and what it means to be an effective leader, how we might define some of those things, especially when we're thinking about leader versus manager, when we're talking about what it is to be a leader and what it is to be just a manager. So, leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. So, trying to get those objectives and those strategies to come to fruition that the organization has set out. So, a person does not need to have a formal position of authority to be a leader. Anyone who exerts influence over others in the pursuit of organizational relevant matters is a leader. As well as study in OB, scholars have developed a great number of theories to help guide managers to improve their leadership effectiveness in trying to motivate their employees to achieve those important strategic objectives that lead to the success of their organization. So managers typically perform functions associated with planning, investigating, organizing, control. Leaders focus on influencing others to achieve strategical objectives. Leaders inspire others to provide emotional support and try to get employees to rally around a common goal. So once again, those really strategic objectives that the organization needs to achieve in order to be successful, in order to try and be efficient and effective in its processes. So we can try and define leadership and those qualities in a lot of different ways. You're going to read about some theories that are going to be important to try and figure out, what are those traits, what are those characteristics that make a good leader versus, a bad manager, or even a good manager versus, a good leader. What are those traits? A particular theory is the trait approach. This theory attempts to identify personality characteristics or interpersonal attributes that can be used to differentiate leaders from followers, or leadership success versus that of managers. So there's a lot of different ways we can try and pick those little nuances out that really help us define what a leader is and when we work for a leader versus what it feels like when we work for a manager, and how we might define a manager versus that of a leader. Now, as we talk about leadership effectiveness, there's also some downsides. There's also a flip of the coin, right? We've probably have worked with some bad leaders and bad managers. There's some bad traits and habits that come about that just don't make effective leaders, that really work against being effective and efficient. So there's several dark tirade traits that often result in career derailment. We have narcissism. So having a self-centered perspective, feelings of superiority, and a drive for personal power and glory. So really, instead of having that relevant power, that expertise power that people rely on you for, your experiences, your knowledge, it's just that authoritative power approach, that I'm in charge, so there's going to be discipline, there's going to be punishment, there's going to be a lot of negativity around this leadership and power role versus that relevant power, that expertise power that people rely on and look to you for because of your experience and your knowledge versus that title that gives you that power. We have Machiavellism, the use of manipulation, a cynical view of human nature and a moral code that puts results over principles. We've think back to theory X and theory Y. We've got that theories or, manager thinks people are there just to get a paycheck. They're going to be lazy at any cost. They're going to try and cut corners and do as little as possible to achieve their objectives for that day. We also have psychopath, characterized as a lack of concern for others, impulsive behavior, and a lack of remorse or guilt when one's actions harms others. So definitely some very bad traits here, some traits that definitely take away from that leadership role, that management role, that power structure that we want to try and avoid, and want to try and make sure we don't put people with those type of traits into those power roles of an organization. So because traits and interpersonal attributes are less amenable to change, it may make sense to focus on patterns of behavior exhibited by effective leaders. This is the focus used by those interested in the behavioral styles approach, which attempts to identify the unique behaviors displayed by effective leaders. So those traits are one of those kind of interpersonal things. It's kind of, they're very hard to overcome and change, especially if they're on the negative side. If they're on the positive side, we definitely want to enhance it and we want to spread it. But traits are sometimes a little bit harder to have change for, to make changes with. Where behaviors, it's a little bit easier to make behavioral changes. We can, put up structures to help certain behaviors to take place and to be enhanced, and try and eliminate other behaviors that we don't want, especially from those in leadership roles. So behavior changes are a little bit easier to take place and bring about as opposed to trait changes. So researchers have predominantly studied two types of task-oriented behaviors, initiating structures and transactional leadership. So initiating structured leader behavior that organizes and defines what group members should be doing to maximize output. Examples of this is structure. Someone organizes a team meeting for a class project, or when someone seeks input from knowledgeable sources to help guide the team's work. Transactional leadership focuses on clarifying employees' roles and task requirements and providing followers with positive and negative rewards contingent on performance. Transactional leadership encompasses the fundamental managerial activities of setting goals, monitoring progress toward goal achievement, punishing people who may not reach those goals. So transactional is very much, we're going to have a good relationship. It's going to be very much transactional. Think about when you go to the store and you buy milk, right? You give them, $4 or $5 for the milk. They give you the milk. Very transactional. You're happy. You got your milk. You need your milk. You pay what you think is a fair price for that milk. You exchanged it with that person. That person sold you their milk. They took in some income from that sale. So everyone's happy. It's very transactional. So the transaction is kind of middle of the road when we think about management and leadership. It's something that most leaders and managers, specifically managers, kind of work off of. Just very much you come in, you do your job, and go give you your paycheck. And, we've got this fair exchange. And so it's kind of middle of the ground. As we go on to talk about other type of leadership styles, transactional usually leads us to transformational, which is kind of the next step up, where you have this concern for employees. You want them to develop, you want them to move forward, but you want to move forward with them. So you're concerned about their movement in the organization, their success, but you also want that success to be linked to you. You want to be linked with them. So you've got this positive feeling with the employees. You guys want to grow together and be successful together, but you do have that linkage with each other. And then as we move past transformational leadership, we then kind of move to the top of the list, if you will, kind of the servant leadership, kind of like the ultimate type of leadership, where you've got this concern for your employees, regardless of what happens to you. So their success is important to you. You want to help them be successful. You want to be there to support them. And if they happen to move forward or have greater success than you, you're okay with that. You're okay that you're not linked to them from a success. You're okay that if you're not successful with them, or that their success doesn't bring you success as well, you're okay that there's no connection there. You just want to be there to serve them, if you will. You want to be there to help support them, help them experience success, move forward with their careers, and you're okay with not having that link there. Where transformational has a lot of those same characteristics and understanding as far as the concern for the employee and wanting them to be successful. However, with transformational, you want that to have a link there. You want your success and their success to be intertwined so both of you can move forward and be successful. Where servant leadership is perfectly okay with just the employee, let's say, being successful, and with you not experiencing any success from their growth inside the organization. So transformational leaders use a combination of charisma, interpersonal skills, and leader behaviors to transform followers, goals, and motives behaviors. And the origins of transformational leaders date back to the 1940s, when German sociologist Max Weber discussed the pros and cons of that type of leadership. So once again, you've got transactional, you have transformational, and then we have servant leadership, which is kind of the setting of the bar, what we're all trying to achieve and get to. So that's an idea, some effective leadership styles, learning about how we define leadership versus managers. We probably have all worked from good managers and bad managers, and we've probably have all worked for really good leaders. And we can really tell the difference when we've had that experience. We can really tell the difference between working for a leader versus working for a manager. And we probably have all had experiences working for good managers versus bad managers. So we can probably define it and we can kind of put our finger on it, what that feeling is, what those characteristics are, and those behaviors are that kind of separates those things from leadership, being a leader to being a good manager to being a poor manager. So there's some ideas and concepts to think about as you talk about effective leadership, the importance of leadership to influence others, to try and achieve those strategic objectives set out by the organization so the organization can be successful. Thank you for joining. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.